Karl Marx says something to the effect, and you can look this up, that the working class cannot liberate itself without overturning the whole ancient order of things, the whole ancient feudal order. Even though you don't really have a functional system of class, you don't go to school, you don't go to libraries, you don't have a class system. You have a vestigial class system, which I believe is what is referred to as a caste system, much like the system of family relations in India. Once it became useless, was referred to this primal feudalism was referred to as a caste system during the age of capitalism. Now, by capitalism, obviously Karl Marx is referring to colonialism. He's not talking about lending somebody money so they can make something and pay you back. He's talking about a corporate entity licensed with special powers to develop the industrial means of a place. So this is already a form of socialism, and the kind of reaction that you get to the end of the system of order that you have, wherein to be referenced in the public record, is a source of enormous wealth, and the entire public media is controlled by the state in this primitive form of socialism that you have to replace if you want to end up with the small, simple government that everyone intuitively knows is desirable. Now, the French will say that fascism is not a form of socialism because they don't have as much experience with totally illegitimate governments, and the idea of socialism is to use the government to establish the utility of communication. But in America, this is called socialism because the faction that controls the means of communication dissolves the government into their academic network, which operates out of the colleges of the doctors, which don't want to give up the privilege that they sell at a high premium to their baccalaureate scholars. In a religious war, you're always fighting for your own name against somebody else who calls himself you. So the Russians, who actually might be Turkish, white Turks, are attacking the Ukrainians because Ukrainian sounds sophisticated to Russian people, and Russian people, when they hear the sound of Ukrainian words, will take it as a sign of sensible listings on the internet. Because there's billions of dollars in advertising money that can be made just from one word that people recognize as a good starting place for a database of websites, a good name for a database of websites that people are looking for, which could solve all your problems in this world, because you could find out anything if you could order the information on the internet in the proper order. And the reason why we're all interested in helping Ukraine is the same reason that these Russian academic networks, who you might say are not credible academicians, are attacking them. And it's going to be some word in Greek or Ukrainian for a legal right to certify a publishing house. It's going to be an Orthodox Christian term, possibly, as we say, Episcopalian, for a post office-like entity of the government, something like a Catholic diocese, which is like a very benign form of colonial entity. It's just a library where they keep listing. And to have this, whatever this Ukrainian or Greek word for a colonial entity is so valuable, this, whatever word this is going to be, that literally millions of Russian bums and psychopaths are attacking Europe to try to own a word for a post office like public library where you list houses. Obviously, we know that the word Al Qaeda, the word for the terrorist network, I don't think you would call it an organization. It's a network, an academic network of references. We know that this Islamism is basically a sexual fetishization of the need for the underclass to physically go to the house of the Muslim priest instead of getting internet listings on her cell phone. In other words, as they say, there are many roads to Damascus. They have some Islamic system of signaling the houses around them from a house. It might literally be roads or paths between houses. And the reason why they're so insane about attacking Lower Manhattan, which you'll note is the 10001 zip code, where the Statue of Liberty was, which is where the immigrants were registered. I mean, Ellis Island, obviously not the Statue of Liberty, but Liberty is what you'd have if you owned your own name, and if everybody had the right to the franchise, which I believe is somewhat different from the right of suffrage. Although in ancient times, in biblical times, it was the same thing, and we refer to the vote as the franchise. But I believe the franchise is the same franchise that you know, the reference in an organization to another organization in their documentation. In this case, the organization is the municipal government or the state government. And the idea of a private franchise might be probably just a vulgar expression. I believe this is always what they were talking about when they refer in the scriptures and the ancient literature to the Genesis and the electorate and the tribal councils of the first government. This would have been a large landlord who would have left their land to many of their family members, and as well as a library in their house, which we know as the church, which would have been left to a priest. And this church was the main publishing house in the times of handwritten literary communication. And this is where all our ancient books were stored for hundreds of years. This was how things were for probably thousands of years. This is the feudal system. And the Islamists want to preserve the privilege of keeping one person out of the church and letting another person in, but this is public domain information and it needs to be up on the internet already a long time ago. And many of the publishing houses will happily share with you, but somehow the right to this franchise, this listing in the municipal record as an individual property owner or as an individual voter, either one is fine with me. You have to get along with the other people in your house anyway. You can be listed at your house if you live in an apartment. But this is why the upper class Asians, especially West Asians, are attacking the Europeans and the Westerners and the Israelis, precisely because they're trying to reestablish a colonial entity. They want to take over London. They want London real estate so that they can own the public record in their nation. It is a Babylonian form of capitalism. They're not talking about lending you money. They're talking about being the only person listed in the public record and owning the public record as a private contractor and the law itself. And that is why you have these giant philanthropic societies that the Republicans amusingly refer to as the deep state, the pseudo-liberal, neoclassical, liberal, neocolonialist foreigners who are trying to buy all the land around the capital, as well as the famous Ivy League institutions on the East Coast. And I have a number of proposals about how to deal with that problem, which I will outline in my other rants until I get some kind of video editing program that works.